Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So is Jesus only going to come back for his original 12 disciples? And where I go you know, and the way you know. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going, and how can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Did Jesus mean that none of the 12 disciples comes to God except through him? Or did he mean that no one at all comes to the Father except through him? All of these teachings and promises are about believers in general, not the immediate disciples only. But let's continue. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also, and from now on you know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is sufficient for us. Jesus said to him, Have I been with you so long, and yet you have not known me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, Show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father in me? The words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me, or else believe me for the sake of the works themselves. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. Notice here that Jesus did not say, whichever of you 12 disciples believes in me, but merely he who believes, meaning anyone who believes in him. Jesus is saying that all Christians will do greater miracles than he did. How's that been working for you, Christians? And immediately following this astounding promise we have, and whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. So the context seems to support the idea that Jesus is directing all of this to all believers. And certainly it's indisputable that he was directing the greater works than these toward all Christians. But there's another little piece here that I want to look at. Is there even a you pronoun in the original Greek in those two verses? The answer is no. Let's just have a quick look at the underlying Greek to show there is no you in those two verses. There is no pronoun like that. The Greek word human and other related words are simply not present in those two verses. So the grammar here seems to lean towards the idea that these are directed towards anyone who meets the criteria, and not just any one of the 12 disciples. But if we ignore the grammar altogether, we can rely upon the context, which clearly shows that Jesus had all Christians in mind, just like he did when he said that those who believe in him will do greater miracles than he did. The only answer that fits is that Jesus truly meant what he said, and that believers in him would be able to literally move mountains and get anything they asked for in prayer, as long as they believed, agreed about it, and asked in his name, if you just simply must combine the small print from each of the separate verses. But believe it or not, there are even more passages that promise Christians will get anything they ask for.
I gotta have more cowbell, baby.
I'll look at just 3 more and wrap this up. John 11:22. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus tells Martha that whatever she asks God for, he will grant it. There are no qualifications here, and Martha was not one of the immediate 12, but what you might call an average believer. Jesus does not tell her, whatever you ask for, you might receive, if it's inside God's will. Or whatever you pray for, don't hold your breath, because God is not a genie for you to demand wishes of. Jesus makes no stipulations and puts no qualifiers or constraints on this promise whatsoever. It's a plain promise that whatever she prayed for, she would get. But I hear the objections now. That was only for Martha and not all Christians. Okay, fine. I'll be glad to throw this one in the trash. You know why? Because I have 2 aces up my sleeve. Ace number 1. 1 John 3:21 and 22. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from him anything we ask because we keep His commands and do what pleases Him. Here we have the author of 1 John telling his readers, average Christians by the way, that whatever they ask of God, God will grant it. There is nothing here that would lead us to believe anything except the face value promise that whatever you pray for, you will receive. There are no restrictions, no fine print, nothing about genies or inside of God's will. It says quite plainly, ask and ye shall receive. Which brings me to ace number 2, one of the most famous verses in the entire Bible, Matthew 7:7. Ooh, must be a very holy and important verse to contain 2 sevens. Yes, I know the verse delimiters were added later. Sheesh. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Well. Ask and it shall be given you. This promise from the mouth of Jesus was issued to a large multitude of people while Jesus was standing on a mountain sharing all sorts of wise sayings and teachings. It's known as the Sermon on the Mount. This is not some private promise to 12 individuals whose magic powers would die off when the last of them died, but to everyone present at Jesus' speech. And of course, the entire point is that Matthew himself, whoever the anonymous author really was, is speaking to his readers via the mouth of Jesus. The things Jesus says are the things Matthew wants to say to those reading his version of Mark's Gospel. Thus, the promise of getting whatever you ask for without any strings attached, except that you believe, and in some verses do so in Jesus' name, is a promise made to all believers, not just the immediate 12. Even the very next verse reiterates this promise. Matthew 7:8. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. The problem is that this promise is clearly false. Everyone who asks does not always receive, and certainly anyone who asks for something that is a violation of science never gets what they ask for. Christians today realize that this ask for anything and God will grant it is a vain promise. Christians do not get anything they ask for, and they certainly don't get anything miraculous, such as mountains being tossed into the ocean or amputees getting new limbs. They know deep down in their hearts, quote unquote, that these promises found in Matthew, John, and 1 John amount to lies, and as such they push them out of their memories and ignore them. The more cunning of Christians will attempt to misinterpret them so that they do not mean what I've clearly shown them to mean. Either way, ignore them or deceive yourself, it really doesn't matter. The result is still the same. You can't always get what you want. No, you can't always get what you want. Why I oughta. You can't always get what you want.